Good evening. I'd like to call to order the March 10th, 2021 regular school committee meeting at 5:17 PM. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with employee groups and/or personnel matters.
Make that
I'll make that
motion.
motion.
I have a motion and a second to enter into executive session. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Demos, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote? And the chair votes aye as well. We will be entering into an executive session and we will reconvene at 6 PM, at which time we will start our public hearing on the budget workshop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Regan, do we have everyone here?
Yes, the committee is here. And I'll send you a list of all of our guests who are on once you get through the committee and us. Some are still logging in, okay?
Okay. Jason, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, you're all set whenever you're ready.
Great. Good evening. I'd like to reconvene the March 10th, 2021 regular school committee meeting at 6 p.m. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our business manager, Mr. David Libby, for our public hearing about our budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
This is our third crack at the budget for the public. I'm going to share my screen now and start this PowerPoint presentation. We always start off with our district strategy as we look at our budget. This is our beliefs that foster all the decisions we make here in the Tewksbury Public Schools. And the district strategy is that the Tewksbury Public Schools community believes that our educational program will encompass a 21st century teaching and learning approach that promotes consistent growth among our students and staff to achieve academic, social, and emotional success for all students. And the theory of action will help us get there. If the Tewksbury Public Schools prioritizes a growth mindset amongst all stakeholders while providing quality professional development and a professional culture grounded in collaboration, and all students will experience innovative, student-centered instruction prioritizing positive outcomes. So our school department budget consists of 4 major parts, 3 of which are managed by the schools: salary, wages paid to our employees; operating expenses are other expenses that incurred throughout our school year. Things like utilities, transportation, student tuition, contracted services, maintenance fall into that category. The third major group of part of our budget is capital outlay. That's major projects that we undertake in the district for various things. It could be technology, could be textbooks, could be a major maintenance project. And then the fourth is what's called our fixed costs that are managed and shared with the town. What we'll focus on tonight, and generally when we talk about the school budget, we're talking about the top 3: salary, operating, and capital outlay. We put together this slide of sort of the challenges we faced in formulating the FY22 budget because of the unique circumstances we're in this year. Typically, state budget is known and predictable by October, November. This year was much later in being finalized and very tentative during the budget process. Just finalized, I think it was the end of January, middle of early February. Typically, local revenues develop a predictable pattern. We kind of know what the town can expect in hotels tax, meals tax, issue items like that. Much less predictable this year due to COVID. Typically, traditional school model is followed. We know the start times, the end times, what school is going to look like. School models still unclear at this time, although it seems like recent developments indicating where the state would like us to go. But we don't really know for sure what the schools will look like in the fall. Typically, we use prior year's actuals to determine needs, or we find budget opportunities, areas where we're over budgeted, under budget in a specific category. With last year being shut down for a third of the year, the operations weren't at all normal, so spending trends and patterns were very atypical. So it's hard to do that with last year's data. Normally we use payroll records just to roll forward staff. We had a high number of folks out on 1-year leave of absence and a number of folks we brought in for as 1-year hires. So those bodies, we really had to do a thorough run through staffing with our building principals and department heads, make sure we had the right folks in our salary budget for next year. Normally, our meetings with principals and department heads are to discuss new initiatives and programs. The operational uncertainty we're in made it really impossible to plan for any of those new initiatives and programs for next year. It's really just, we're kind of just everybody in survival mode this year. Some potential costs that we have to keep in mind as maybe being on our radar for school year 21-22. Pool testing is something we're just starting out with here as a pilot. If we like that, we want to continue that into next school year. It's something we would need to consider from a financial perspective. Remote learning, is that going to be continued next year? If so, in what form will it look like? We might get some guidance from the state on that, but we don't know what that's going to be looking like at this point. Additional transportation costs, we're keeping this on the radar right now. We haven't seen any major transportation cost increases, but if we do any tweaking to school times or additional restrictions from the state, we want to keep that as a possibility. Leave of absence costs, costs of replacing staff that may continue on a leave of absence through next year. Continue supplying our students and staff with mitigation, PPE products and or procedures. And just the overall length of the pandemic, you know, when are we going to be back to fully normal here in the district? This is a slide that just shows us our costs that are we've identified as directly related to COVID. This first column was where we were when we did our first budget presentation in January. This is where we were at our second presentation through in the middle of January. This is where we are today through February, and this is this represents the difference that we've seen since our last meeting. I highlighted here a new category that has developed here in the district for student services. The special ed department has been providing extra services to students in the areas of occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, and behavior. We expected to see these costs at some point, and they're already starting to trickle in as related to getting students back on track, our higher needs students, and trying to get them progressing to where they need to be academically. The other big ticket item down here that had a big jump from last time, HVAC and maintenance, that most of that was our deposits we needed to make for our tent rentals and purchases to support outdoor learning spaces at our schools in April. Other areas of focus, we have no collective bargaining agreements in place for next year. So that's really an unknown when we're, for budgeting purposes, what those numbers will look like heading into next year. Assuring we have accurate accounting and tracking of the COVID-related leaves of absences. I spoke about that on the earlier slide, but that was something we needed to kind of take a long, careful look at. Funding student services adequately to recover from COVID-related progress reduction, and we're already seeing that, as you can see on our previous slide. We want to keep an eye on that as we move into next year and make sure we're prepared to support that student learning for our higher needs students. We see a nice effort with our principals to collaborate, especially our K-4 group, where they're making sure we have we maximize the utilization of resources. I know they did a thorough sort of reconfiguration of how we use our specialists at our K-4 schools. and they continue to collaborate on items such as that they can share amongst the schools. The other thing we had to keep in mind when thinking about personnel is our new elementary school is on the horizon for FY23. So this budget that we're preparing right now is the last budget under our current model of school configuration. So we didn't want to get into any long-term personnel decisions that we just need to undo when the new school comes online. From a technology perspective, security is key for us. We want to make sure our networks secure. Any software that we use needs to be FERPA compliant, make sure we're protecting our students' identity. The technology department's developed a very robust device replacement and maintenance program that we're replacing aging out devices. So those are all phasing out end-of-life devices so that they're always working and reliable in our schools. Monitoring systems, these monitoring systems will alert us when things are going wrong before they get to a critical point. So we're staying ahead of problems. Again, technology is an area that we really can't have fail these days. And we're always looking at printing solutions, ways to produce less paper and be more efficient with copying and hard copies of documents. And COVID might have given us a little bump into moving more away from paper and people feeling more comfortable with digital versions of some of the work that students do. In the area of building improvements, just general upkeep of our older buildings is always a challenge. Building security, we're always looking at our access and control systems in our buildings. We have 2 security vestibules that we have left. We've made significant improvements in our camera systems at our schools. Our overall building systems, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, always keeping an eye on those. And STEM makerspaces are areas we want to have at every school so students get that educational experience during their day. So our budget request is a 2.58% increase in those 3 major areas of our budget. A 3% change in salary, 1.85 in operating and level funding capital outlay. We'll get into what those areas all specifically refer to. If you consider our fixed costs, which are, again, those costs we share with the town, we're looking at a 1.3% increase overall for the schools for FY22. We have a decrease here in our debt service that's a naturally recurring, decreasing debt over time. So that will continue to drop year over year as we pay for some of these school building projects that we've done in the recent past. So our salary represents 70% of our school budget. We assume level staffing for FY22 to start within our budget. If we have any new staffing needs, related to COVID, those would likely be funded through COVID resources and grants that are available to the school department. This accounts for contractual step and longevity increases, and it's sort of broken out by group. Our major working groups in the district. Most of our salary is in the teacher category, you can see. This just breaks down our head count and LEA budgeted amount by school groups. Again, and teachers represent the largest, 68% of the 70% salary in our budget. The operating piece of our budget is a little more spread out. Tuition, transportation, special education services and supplies make up most of that budget. And capital outlay represents just 2% of our budget. The priority we're trying to get done this year is our Ryan roofing project. We put out for bid a roof coating process similar to a project we completed at the Heath School successfully 2 to 3 years ago. It's not replacing the entire roof, but just coating it with a new product. The Ryan roof is close to the end of its life. We're starting to experience leaking in the building, and they've made improvements to this roof repair method. We now have a 20-year warranty product that we put out in our bid spec versus we got a 10-year warranty on the Heathbrook project, and a 20-year warranty is close to what you could get on a brand new roof. So we actually did open the bids today. We had some favorable figures on that project, so we're hoping to move forward with that this summer. We've also vetted the project with our new school building team to make sure we could peacefully coexist over the summer in the tight space that we have on the property here on Pleasant Street. And the contractor, architect, and our project manager agreed that they thought we could get that project done this summer and still progress with the new school. These are just some projects we're keeping on the radar to get completed, FY22, FY23. I'm highlighting here the Heathbrook lighting project. We just received a proposal from Guardian Energy that includes some incentives from National Grid as an energy saving project. It's converting our lights in the school from fluorescent to LED fixtures. We did a similar project at the Heathbrook already on 80% of the building. This would be the other 20% that hadn't been completed in the previous project, as well as the second floor classrooms at the Wynn School. The lighting is much better than the fluorescent tubes that were in the building, just softer on the eyes and it makes for a better environment. And it's about a 5.5-year return on investment. So it's a great project, and we're looking to move forward on that as soon as we can. Capital projects completed in the past few years, mainly in the areas of building security and building maintenance. Just a lot of work has been getting done in the district here to improve our buildings and our building security as well. Something new, we moved on to the completed list for this year, removed and disposed of about 100 TVs working in conjunction with the town's contractor, Republic Services, and the town manager's office. They came and took those TVs away from us, close to 100 of the old tube TVs that we were hanging on to in the schools, taking up space, and those are out of the way now. We manage 58 separate funds in the business office, grants and revolving accounts. We had 62 last year. We continue to assess and clean up those revolving accounts. All have a specific purpose and must be used appropriately for whatever the grant or the fund is raised for. A few of these, just to call it to your attention, our food services lands in this category of a revolving account. Our food service program is completely self-funding. They don't use any money from our budget. The other one that has a impact would have a big impact on our regular budget if it wasn't around would be the circuit breaker revolving account. That's money we receive from the state for higher cost special education students. We use it to offset special ed tuitions to the tune of about $2 million every year. So those are just some, if we didn't have items like those, we'd be in a much worse financial shape from our LEA budget perspective. Listed here is all of our grant funding opportunities that we have in FY21. Typically, that would roll over into FY22 as well. Highlighted here is a state corona prevention grant that we received. This is new since our last meeting in February. Tewksbury was awarded $126,850. It's to be spent on COVID-related expenses and needs to be spent during FY21. Some of these grants do extend beyond FY21 into FY22. This ESSER 2 grant that we received earlier this year can be spent as late as 2023. September of 2023 is when that grant expires. So those will be resources we could tap into for next year and beyond if need be for COVID expenses. So this is what our budget will look like at town meeting with our fixed costs sort of broken out by category. Our health insurance we're expecting to see a slight decline in our health insurance costs. Some new products being offered by the town to our employees have worked out well from a financial perspective. And again, you see that decrease in our debt over time. That number will continue to decrease as we move along. So the next steps will be continued discussions with principals, department heads, all stakeholders in the district to refine and react to our ever-changing needs. We'll keep an eye on that project list. Things come on and off that list pretty frequently. It's updated, and we look for the best use of available and appropriate resources to complete any of those projects that become a priority during the time of the budget. And this process will continue from now through May town meeting and is likely to produce some movement within our overall budget, represented by these arrows. We move some money from any of these categories, but we do feel comfortable that we'll be able to operate efficiently and effectively within the $69,637,971 that matches the town manager's recommendation. So just a reminder that this presentation plus more detailed account level information is always available on our website under the business office page of the Tewksbury Public Schools website. If people are interested in looking at any this presentation or what our account level detail budget looks like. And with that, I would like to turn it back over to Chairman Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Libby. I'll go to our vice chair first for any questions or comments. Mr. Cutlass? Mr. Cutlass, any questions?
Oh, thank you. I was muted.
Jamie, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Jamie, could you hold on 1 second? Brenda, there's a whole bunch of beeping going on. Maybe can we take this down, or I don't know if that's part of the issue?
I'm not hearing the beeping, Mr. Chairman. Jason,
Okay.
please look into, maybe somebody's mic is not muted?
I'm getting a bunch. With that, I'll yield the floor to Mr. Cutlass.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank Mr. Libby for a clear and thorough presentation. It was a good job, and I'm glad to see we have that money through FY23. And I just read in the paper today, too, I hope it comes true, that if that Biden stimulus goes through, Mass should get another $8 billion, and hopefully we get some of that. So thank you, Mr. Libby. Good job.
Great. Now to our clerk, Mrs. Demos.
No, Mr. Libby, you have already answered all my questions that I've had in the past. I thank you again for all the effort that went into this.
Thank you, Mrs. Demos. Mr. Stadman.
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, no, just thank you for being thorough and it's well put together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And I also would like to express my gratitude, Mr. Libby, for your hard work and dedication to putting a thoughtful budget together. And I would like to remind the public, if they do have any questions, please feel to reach out to any one of us on the school committee or the superintendent or Mr. Libby himself. So thank you, Mr. Libby. With that, I'll take a motion to close the budget hearing for this evening.
Make that motion, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to close tonight's budget hearing. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Demos, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. The unanimous vote. The budget hearing is closed. Mr. Cutlass, I'm going to ask, I notice it's been taking about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes to run through this announcement. You know, if we can do that while we're waiting, as long as it gets us beyond the 6:30.
I think we can, Mr. Chair. I think that would be fine.
Okay. Okay, with that, we will go with the pre-announcement prior to the official announcement and opening of the 6:30 meeting. Good evening. As a preliminary matter, my name is Keith Sullivan. I'm the chairman of the Tewksbury School Committee. Please permit me to confirm all the members and persons anticipated on the agenda tonight are present, can hear me, and consent to be recorded. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Cutlass.
I consent.
Thank you. Mrs. Demos.
I consent.
Mr. Wilson.
I consent.
Mr. Stadman.
I consent.
And the chair affirms as well. As for staff, Superintendent Malone.
I consent.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent Regan.
I consent.
Mr. Libby, our business manager.
I consent.
Thank you. Our principals, Mr. John Bernard.
I consent.
Thank you. Ms. Karen Cronin.
I consent.
Thank you. Mr. Jay Harding.
I consent.
Thank you. Ms. Terry Garish. Thank you.
I consent.
Thank you. Ms. Felicia Jazenovich.
I consent.
Thank you. Mr. Ron Bruin, not sure if he's here. And Mr. John Marchant.
Yes, hi, I consent.
Great,
And
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, John Ware, Principal John Ware has also entered the screen.
Great, Mr. Ware.
Yes, I consent.
Great, thank you, and good evening. Before we
Hey,
officially,
Keith,
yes,
I'm
sir.
in my hotel room here and because I'm out of my house and I have a guest, Mr. Druin, who stopped by. So I just wanted to put him on the spot for half a second. And
We got a souvenir for Scott for his time on the school committee. A little signed basketball for him. Our art department put together. I'm trying to find the camera right there. Big help from the art department at the high school, but we want to say thanks to Scotty for all he's done for the school committee and his time there, and served us well both in his role on the school committee and a big supporter of athletics, and wanted to make sure we got him something on his way out the door. So thanks, my man. Have a good time. See you again. Thank you.
My dog was going crazy. Thank you again, Ron. This is awesome. Sorry, Keith.
Yeah, no problem. On behalf of the committee and the community, and I'm sure Jamie and your colleagues would also like to share their sentiments, but I just wanted to express my sincere gratitude for the service not only to our board and our community, but our students, the families, and the staff in the district. I've always appreciated your thoughtful, thorough, dedicated, and commitment to our students, our families, and our staff. This job certainly isn't an easy one. It's a very important one, obviously. And your approach towards the issues brought on not only by the pandemic, but the nature of the job and your understanding of the role as a school committee member has always been spot on from day one, and it's something I'll certainly miss. So I truly believe, honestly, that the district's a better place because of your service. So many decisions, so many things, not even the school committee, but all of the principals and the teachers that take place every day that the community never gets to see help contribute to that. So thank you for that. And thank you to certainly Betsy, Tyler, and Colby for allowing them to, share and us be the benefit of it in the district. So with that, that's my heartfelt thank you. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Cutlass if he has anything to say.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Keith. No, I just want to thank Scott too. He's always been a reasonable, thoughtful, intelligent committee member, and always with the best interest of the town and the kids at heart, and always doing the right thing for Tewksbury. And we're going to miss him. I think he's been a wonderful addition to our board, and we're going to miss him. And I just say thank you, Scott, for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cutlass. Clerk, Mrs. Demos.
Yes, Mr. Cutlass. Mr. Chair, thank you. Scott, I just have to say that, I've respected how you've been so dedicated to this town for a long time, since the day that Tyler walked into my 4th grade room years ago, right? And you did the volunteering hours with us then, you and Betsy. And I just, watching Tyler and Colby grow up to such fine young men is a true testament to their dad. You're a strong advocate for the students in this district, and you will be greatly missed on this committee. I respect your collaboration. You're always calm, cool, and collected, and you're willing to hear both sides. I want to thank you for all your time and all your efforts here, and you will be greatly missed.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Stadman.
Everyone said everything that I was going to say. No, Scott.
Stuff going last, John.
I know. They said everything I needed to say. No, Scott, you will be missed. Like everyone said, you're kind of like myself. You want all the facts, and then you make your decision. Everyone doesn't know, how much you do just for the school committee alone. This isn't an easy role to take, but you'll definitely be missed. Wish you the best with everything you do. I know you'll do well in the future, and like we say with the kids, you'll do well in the future, whatever you choose to do with your life going forward.
Thank you very much.
All right, good luck, man.
And thanks again, Scott.
You're welcome. Thank you, Keith.
You're welcome. With that, I'd like to have a more somber moment. It's with great regret I inform the community that we would like to observe a moment of silence for Mr. Andrew Walsh, former music teacher and band director at TMHS, who passed away on February 15th, way too soon. Thank you. Thoughts and prayers are certainly with the Walsh family and their friends. All right, so good evening. This open meeting of the Tewksbury School Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order due to COVID-19. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remote so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. To participate, please call into 781-565-8134. For this meeting, the Tewksbury Public Schools is convened by WebEx as posted on the town's website, which identifies how the public may join, view live through televised cable channels, Comcast 22, Verizon 34, or at youtube.com/Tewksbury TV. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and aired live and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Please note that this meeting is, accordingly, please be aware that people may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you do broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the district website or by request. Please email Gail Johnson at gjohnson@tewksbury.k12.ma.us for a copy of the agenda packet. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless otherwise noted. Just to refresh our ground rules, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Additionally, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And if anyone has comments or questions, it can be submitted in the chat window and will be recognized. For any responses, please wait until I yield the floor to you. If members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through the chair. And for citizens forum, please identify yourself by name and address for the record. Citizens will then have the opportunity to address any current or previous agenda items. And finally, each vote of this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. With that, I would like to turn it over to Superintendent Malone for this evening's staff recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And certainly we have a lot of staff to be proud of. All of our staff are working extremely hard to support the students in the district. Our teachers, our aides, our secretaries, our nurses who were part of our meeting last month, our cafeteria workers, our administrators are certainly putting in a great deal of work. But we do have a workforce here for the district that are really the unsung heroes of our district. And if not for their work, we never would have been able to open up schools in the fall. And we certainly wouldn't be able to have students in person learning in schools as much as we do now, or have the confidence moving forward to have all students returning to school in less than a month. Our maintenance staff and custodial workers are certainly our superheroes here in the district. Their dedication, their commitment to the work, they've learned new tools and techniques and used new equipment this year that they never thought they'd be using, from sprayers to power washers to chemicals and ingredients they never thought they'd be seeing, to constantly circulating the school, wiping down touch points in schools, doing enhanced cleaning of individual spaces in whole schools regularly, and in any situation where we've run into any type of positive COVID cases in the district. Their dedication goes beyond this COVID piece. I would challenge anyone, if you really want to see where people's work ethic are, is see them on a snow day when our schools are closed, and see what kind of work they're engaging in as far as snow removal and making all of our areas safe, doing all these pieces. Our maintenance foreman, John Marchand, on weather incident days, He and I are usually talking somewhere between 3 and 4 in the morning, and I've yet to have to wake him up because he's already on site, already doing the work when I call, and he manages everyone to the point where we don't have to worry about the safety or conditions of the school, and we're so proud of that. And I'd add a piece on this that's a little bit unusual for both our maintenance staff and building custodians, is that they do most of this with a smile. They're just good people, and they're friendly people, and they're nice people, and they're also individuals who make connections with students at school. And if not for their work, certainly our buildings would not be safe right now. Certainly we would not have the confidence moving forward. But they are truly our superheroes, and we're very appreciative of that. I'd just like to run through the names of the individuals at this point. From our maintenance staff, our maintenance foreman, John Marchand, our assistant maintenance foreman, Brett Weiss, our maintenance workers, Mike Arsenal, Dan Carter, Paul Decker, Dan Martin, and Chris O'Brien. And our building custodians from the Dewey School, Tim Silva Couture, Rick Stronach, and Eric West. From the Heathbrook, Joe Burke, Jason DeBay, and Brian Glidden. From the North Street, Paul Bishop and Corrine Rooney. From the Trahan, Barry Patterson and Beat Thiller. From the Ryan, Mark Hamill, Ron Page, Justin Prunier, and Barry Sullivan. From the Wynn, Luigi Giusetto and James Shimkus. And from the high school, Patrick Lamarcky, Brett McCoy, Sean O'Brien, Roland Patterson, Robert Finney, and John Rufo. And again, these are just people that come to work every day, work hard. A lot of their work is not seen every day, but it is appreciated. And we're just so proud of the work they do. And they don't get to see the benefits sometimes of the looks on students' faces when they know their school is clean, when they know that their entranceway is shoveled out. And certainly we see the pride in their work, and we're very proud of them. And Mr. Chair, they're just the true superheroes of our district, and we're very thankful for all their work.
Thank you, Mr. Malone, and I couldn't agree more. Mr. Cutlass, any thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I'd just like to thank Mr. Marchand and his entire team. Couldn't say it any better than Superintendent Malone did. They just have had an outstanding year this year under extremely difficult circumstances, and we want to applaud them. The schools are in great shape and great condition, and I just want to thank Mr. Marchand and his team for a great job and all their hard work. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cutlass. Mr. Demos?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd just like to take a moment to thank John and all of his staff. They're truly the unsung heroes in all these unprecedented times. We've asked a whole lot of extras from them to get us through this pandemic and continue to get through this and keep the kids safe every day so that they can be in and learning. And my gratitude goes out to each and every one of them. So thank you all for everything that you do for the kids in Tewksbury.
Thank you. Mr. Stadman?
Oh, I don't have to go last this time? No, I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. No, this is this crew is near and dear to my heart. Being in facilities management, this is the team that always being at a school committee, we focus on kids and teachers, and it's often that this team is left kind of behind, but want to take a moment to truly recognize this team. Again, it's the ones that are pulling those 3 a.m. to 6 o'clock. It's the guys and girls that are running around the clock 24/7. You can't say enough for people like this. It could be simple thing as scraping gum off the bottom of a chair, but again, when stuff like this, it hits the fan, and teams like this step up, you can't thank them enough. So again, thank you so much.
And Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I'll just echo what everyone else said. I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of you over the years, coaching basketball and being in the schools. And, I miss having those interactions, miss seeing you guys. But what I do know is that you're doing tremendous work. You've had to adjust to different times and just handling your business so professionally and so unnoticed. So I'm glad we were able to take a moment and recognize you for the hard work that you do and for helping to keep our schools clean and keep our families safe. So just thank you so much for everything that you've done this year and what you do every year.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson, and I'll just reiterate extreme gratitude, obviously. You guys never balked once. I wish that there was more we could do other than have you on a Zoom call to just, express to you how grateful we are, what you have all done and what you continue to do. And, never have an issue with it. You've been asked to do duties and things that maybe even are outside of your scope at times, and you've never wavered once. So, John and your entire team, on behalf of the school committee, we would just like to say thank you very much for all the efforts. And we look forward to supporting you guys and girls as best we can in the future.
Can I speak for a minute, Kevin?
Absolutely, John. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to thank the administration, the school committee. I can't do my job without the support of them. And my team of custodial maintenance guys are just phenomenal. I could call them at any time of the day, any day of the week, and any of them would just be there for me. So I just want to thank all of them and all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marchand. And with that, I don't believe we have a student representative. I believe he's not in the house tonight. Is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry. We have a resolution here. Maybe our clerk, Mrs. Demos. Would you care to please read the resolution?
Sure. So the resolution of recognition, whereas Michael Arsenault, Paul Bishop, Joseph Burke, Daniel Carter, Paul Becker, Jason Dubé, Luigi Giusetto, Brian Glidden, Mark Hamlin, Patrick LaMarche, John Marchand, Daniel Martin, Brett McCoy, Christian O'Brien, Sean O'Brien, Ronald Page, Barry Patterson, Roland Patterson, Robert Finney, Justin Prunier, Corrine Rooney, John Rufo, James Shimkus, Timothy Silva Couture, Richard Stronach, Barry Sullivan, Peter Thullier, Brett Weiss, and Eric West are dedicated, hardworking, and resourceful building custodians and maintenance staff in the Tewksbury Public Schools. And whereas, under the direction of John Marchand, maintenance foreman, and assistant maintenance foreman, Brett Weiss, the maintenance and custodial staff have been working overtime and on weekends, engaged in deep cleaning and sanitizing classrooms and buildings. They performed enhanced cleaning and maintenance to improve ventilations in school, and have completed numerous building maintenance projects during this global pandemic to protect the students and staff in the Tewksbury Public Schools. And whereas custodians and maintenance crew continue to prioritize the health and safety of our students and staff through adherence to CDC-approved methods and products to adhere to the coronavirus issue, and whereas we offer gratitude and appreciation to Michael, Paul, Joseph, Daniel, Paul, Jason, Luigi, Brian, Mark, Patrick, John, Daniel, Brett, Christian, Sean, Ronald, Barry, Roland, Robert, Justin, Corrine, John, James, Timothy, Richard, Barry, Peter, Brett, and Eric for their efforts to combat COVID-19 and assist the district during these difficult times. They have brought great pride, recognition, and honor to themselves, the Tewksbury Public Schools, and the town of Tewksbury. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tewksbury School Committee applauds, honors, and recognizes the many efforts of the Tewksbury Public Schools custodians and maintenance personnel submitted by the school committee on this 10th day of March 2021.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Demos. Certainly appreciate it. I think the public hears me speak enough, so I certainly appreciate you reading that recognition. With no student representative report this evening, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Malone for a presentation on extracurricular activities and an update regarding it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I'll let Ms. Regan introduce our high school interim principal, Mr. Bernard.
Yeah, 1 minute, please. Let me get to that presentation. They're queued up here. Okay, can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sure that you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee can imagine just how much planning and preparation and effort goes into the end of the year activities at a high school, the curricular events and ongoing yearly activities, and certainly the high stakes and other types of testing for our high school students, not to mention all while we're in a pandemic. So tonight we have the pleasure of TMHS Principal, Mr. John Bernard, being with here tonight so that he can describe not only the collaborative process that transpired with students and staff, but also announce some of those many upcoming events for the Tewksbury Memorial High School students. So welcome, Mr. Bernard.
Thank you, Mrs. Regan. Mr. Sullivan, thank you very much. As I told Mrs. Regan last week when she asked me if I would be willing to come to tonight's meeting to make a presentation, I really embraced the opportunity. It's been a strange year, as everyone well knows and doesn't need to be told. But in a typical year, I would have enjoyed many more opportunities to interact with all of you, and I'm sorry that has not been the case. But be that as it may, I'm happy to be here this evening, and I'm excited to share with you what I hope you will find to be a good deal of information about some work that's been going on recently as we look to winding down the school year. We have a lot of good things going on right now. I have a brief presentation here, and if you don't mind, Mrs. Regan, maybe just if we could look to the agenda. A few things. I'm hoping you'll indulge me for a few minutes to extend some thank yous. As your agenda for your meeting states, I'm here to give you an overview of spring student activities and some events that we have scheduled for our students. I'm going to talk to you about them in a bit of detail, reflecting on a communication that I sent out earlier this week to all families that I think has been well received. At least the feedback I have gotten has been extremely positive, and I'm happy for that. I'm going to talk to you about how we got to the place where we are today and where we hope to be over the next couple of months as we wind down this school year, and speak to you about some highlights of events so that you are informed if you aren't already aware. And then, as Mrs. Regan said, just to clue you in a little bit on where we are in terms of student assessments that are coming up in the spring. So with that, I want to extend a very sincere thank you to Mr. Malone, Mrs. Regan, Mr. Libby, and the staff at the center school. They have made me feel extremely welcome here. I have to tell you, I've been thoroughly impressed since I arrived in the district on July 1st. Everyone has been extremely welcoming, extremely helpful. Even though I had a pretty long career in public education, Tewksbury is a new place for me, but I really feel as though I have worked here much longer than I have since July 1st, and I think that's due in large part to how warmly I've been embraced. I've had an opportunity to meet with all of you at one time or another on the school committee. Mr. Wilson, I'm sorry I haven't had more opportunity to work with you. Our first meeting was, I think, when I interviewed for this job. So thank you for your support then. I've had a couple of occasions since that time to interact with you, and I think it's fair to say that just in the short time I've known you, that your impact on the district has been felt, and I think will be felt for a long time. So congratulations to you on a certainly a wonderful time as a member of the Tewksbury School Committee.
Thank you.
Certainly, Scott. The high school administration, I really cannot say enough about Dr. Osborne, Mr. O'Leary, and Mr. Druin. Working alongside of the three of them since July has been a real treat. They have done everything that I've asked of them and more. They've anticipated what needs to be done. Having the historical knowledge of the school and the school districts around me has been extremely helpful, and I'm very, very grateful to the three of them, as well as my colleagues on the district leadership team. It's been really nice to get to know all of them and to work alongside of them. You know, as everyone knows, it's been a difficult year, but there really is a team spirit alive and well here, and I think that's contributed significantly to why we are in such a good place right now, particularly as we face the pandemic. The faculty at the high school, again, I'm super impressed with how well they have handled a lot this year. I'm very impressed with what I see going on in classrooms. I've had the opportunity to visit a good number of them, have interacted with people since day one. I'm super impressed with the staff at the school, the support staff, our aides, custodians. And Mr. Malone, I thought, and the members of the committee did a nice job recognizing our custodians. They have been the glue that has held us all together, really, in keeping our schools safe for everybody. And I'm very grateful to them, as well as the secretaries, our two nurses at the high school, Kelly Constantino, Mackenzie Canini, the food service workers. Everyone has just really displayed such a positive can-do attitude, again, from day one. And I'm very, very grateful to all of them. The students, they have been remarkable. I have been so thoroughly impressed with their level of cooperation and their willingness to do what has been asked of them in order to keep everybody safe. Again, I think their efforts, and I've told them this in the opportunities I've had to meet with them in small and large groups, that I'm very thankful for their willingness to work alongside of us. And I think that their efforts really are significant in us keeping a safe school and getting us, increasingly toward the goal of more in-person learning. And I'm very, very thankful to them. And I'm going to speak to you all more specifically about how I have been working with the students on the planning of some of the activities we have scheduled. I haven't had as many opportunities to interact with parents as I normally would have, or certainly as I would have liked to have. But on the occasions when I have, again, they've been extremely patient. They've been extremely supportive, very understanding of the challenges, and very thankful for the hard work that people are doing to keep their children safe, to maintain some semblance of a school day and school year for their children. And they have expressed this to me, either through email or in conversations that I have had, limited as those may be. The Parent Advisory Council, the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, our booster groups that support athletics, theater arts, have been wonderful. Their work has been tremendous. They have not given up. They've continued to work hard in support of students, and I'm very grateful to all of them as well. So my next slide is a little bit about extracurricular student activities. It may be obvious, but I think it begs mentioning that, our clubs have been meeting virtually, given the restrictions that are in place. And some really nice work has gone on, and we have engaged, we have a significant number of students that are in full-time remote learning. And aside from that, we still have a significant number of students participating in our extracurricular activities. It's about 25% of the school, and that's exclusive of athletics. And I shared with you here on this slide what our participation has been to date and what we're anticipating for the spring season as well. And it's a good number, and it's nice to see that that our students have taken advantage of opportunities to be engaged in their school, either through clubs or activities or athletics. I do think it's fair to say that we are in a good place at the high school to, I'm using the word to pivot, if we are allowed for more in-person time at school. I think, quite honestly, I think people are very eager to do that. My sense is that there's a lot of time spent in front of a screen, and when we ask students to engage in our extracurricular activities on the screen, that we probably are losing some of the energy that might be in place with participation in extracurriculars, because it just extends the time on screen. And quite honestly, as you all know, it doesn't replace kind of the in-person interaction and the work that would be going on among our clubs. But aside from that, we have had two theater performances, virtual performances, a fall play in Romeo and Juliet, and then a winter performance with Check Please. And the students and staff are currently working on the spring musical, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, which right now is scheduled to be a virtual show. We honored the traditional DECA fashion show. We were able to pull that off under the work of Mr. Sullivan, one of our teachers in the business department at the high school, and a good number of students. I had occasion, they were one of the first clubs that was really looking to kind of assume some sense of normalcy in maintaining traditional events. And so I met with them as we kind of navigated how might we be able to continue the fashion show in honor of Megan. And they did a nice job with that. They were very understanding of the complexities around doing this virtually. They understood why this needed to happen. And I'd like to think that they really served as a good example of how things can happen, again, in a different way. But we very, very strongly took an attitude of like, let's talk about all of the ways that we might be able to make this happen, as opposed to all of the reasons why this might not be able to happen. And I think that really resonated with the students. And I'd like to think it translated into success in other areas, theater arts as an example, as well as some of the other work that our clubs have been doing. Some other highlights I have on the slide here is our international club is very active under the direction of one of our foreign language teachers, Mrs. Dudley. They did a fall cleanup of trash in the community. They continued with a fleece blanket donation. They've done some cards to senior citizens. And by the way, these are not by any stretch all of the things that have gone on. I just pulled some highlights of things that I had been particularly well aware of. Our SAD chapter, our Students Against Destructive Decisions chapter, has really done a nice job of engaging families through social media, kind of an enhanced social media presence. We were kind of forced, if you will, in the summer to think in a different way about how we could offer a new student orientation program for the incoming freshman students, as well as students that are new to the community, new to the high school, but maybe not necessarily freshman students. And I called on our student council under the direction of one of our teachers, Mrs. Glass, and the kids did an outstanding job. They, I just can't say enough about how they worked with me, with Mr. O'Leary, with Dr. Osborne, with Mr. Druin, to pull off a really good combined in-person small group student-led orientation program with a virtual program that was also done by one of our students who I've tapped into. Again, I'm sorry Jack's not on the meeting tonight to do his student presentation, but Jack Stadman has been so fun to work with, and has just, he's very skilled technologically and has done a tremendous amount of work with some of our programs this year, and I'm very grateful to him for that. And that program really, as I think ahead, I think it's something the high school might want to continue in terms of a format. I think we benefited more from kind of small group orientation for freshman students than maybe I had experienced when I was a principal before in North Reading, when we had some 200 students in trying to do an orientation program. So we might have found a silver lining, so to speak. And currently they're doing a fundraiser for COVID-19 relief. The fundraiser is really cute. They ran it by me. They tried to find I'll say one of the most annoying songs they could possibly find to play over the PA system at the start of the morning. And until we reach $1,000 in donations to stop the music, they will play it each morning. So I forget the song, but it's something Barbie. Somebody might know what it is. The signs are up all over the school, but I can't remember. It's some sort of a Barbie song, but it's quite grating. So if you want to make a donation, I would greatly appreciate it, so we don't have to listen to it much longer. But it's really cute, and again, I think it just speaks to the students are trying to do their best, to engage people. It's a nice gesture, COVID-19 relief fundraiser, and I think it's just it's another nice example of the work that the students are trying to do in a really difficult time. I do have another slide here on the planning for the spring events and activities. I don't know that I necessarily, Mr. Malone or Mrs. Regan, unless you want me to, but I just wanted to give you an illustration of the work that's been going on and over the last couple of months, and that will continue to go on. And this is, just a snapshot. But we came back from the Christmas vacation, and I remember distinctly, Mr. O'Leary, Dr. Osborne, and Mr. Druin and I, we try to get together once a week and have kind of a working lunch and just really, enjoy each other's company, collaborate, and just kind of do the normal thing. But it's a bit of a working lunch. And I remember very distinctly coming back from that vacation saying, May and June are going to be here before we know it. We really need to start to get our head around where are we going to be? And again, I think a lot has evolved since that January 11th meeting in terms of where we are right now as a world in responding to the pandemic. But be that as it may, we started to map out a plan for how we might be able to do something different in the spring in a very positive way. And so what you have on this slide here is a listing of a series of meetings that we've held, mostly with students, either in small groups with class officer and advisor meetings. And we've also had larger group virtual meetings, voluntary meetings with 3 of the 4 classes. You can see that we have the freshman class of 24, scheduled to be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Depending upon the class, depending upon the group of students, in some ways there's more to talk about. There's much more to talk about with the seniors than there is even with the juniors, and there's more with the juniors than the sophomores. But be that as it may, we've kind of made ourselves available. We do kind of a Q&A chat with them, as well as make presentations to those groups of students, again, small or large groups. And it's really gone a long way, I think, to getting us to a place where we're very excited about kind of the hope and the optimism for the spring. And so I'd like to walk through with you now some highlights on the next slide here. Thank you, Brenda. It was earlier this week, Monday, I believe it was, Monday afternoon, that I issued a pretty extensive packet of information. I think it's about 5.5 or 6 pages or so to the high school community. And it followed kind of the last very important meeting, I think, at the time that we had with the senior class officers and advisors on that afternoon. So on Monday afternoon, we met with them again and reviewed this document that I'm not sure, Mrs. Regan, Mr. Malone, were you able, did the committee members have that packet? No? Okay. I know Mrs. Demos would have it, Mr. Sullivan, his parents, Mr. Wilson. So in any case, I really felt an obligation to honor the relationship that we had built with the senior class officers and share with them first what we were hoping to do. And so we had that meeting, and they were really just super thankful and really appreciative. I think they were a little overwhelmed at just how much we had been able to plan for them, and recognize, and I would say to all of you, that everything right now has a great big footnote at the end of it that, this is our best thinking and our best planning to date, given what we know from the federal government, from state government, and from any local guidelines that might drive what we might be able to do. And they're very understanding of that. And I think that the packet that went out to, I think I have about 2,100 or so email addresses in kind of my bulk system. It's very clear, I think, that, this is a fluid document. But for right now, and I thank Mrs. Regan and Mr. Malone, I met with them last week in advance and, kind of worked through the document with them, and they were extremely supportive and endorsed all of our ideas. They had some suggestions, and, again, I look to them for their historical knowledge of this community and of the high school that, is still very new to me. But I do think that there's a lot, it's been interesting to see that I do think that there are a lot of similarities from where I had worked previously to working here. And that's to be a really good thing. And that communication that went out, as I said to you earlier in the presentation, has been really well received. And I think it's because we're giving a lot of optimism and a lot of hope to the spring. And so I would like to take a moment, Mr. Chairman, to just walk through this slide, if you don't mind. We are planning for a National Honor Society induction ceremony that will recognize both inductees for the class of 2021 who did not have an induction ceremony last year because of the impact of the coronavirus. And we're also going to do, we're planning to do a ceremony for the class of 2022 inductees. And they would both happen on the same evening, but at different times. And again, a lot of the details of these highlights are in the packet that was sent out. We've already engaged Tewksbury TV. Brian and Jason have been outstanding. They've been outstanding in their willingness to cover everything that we've asked them to do and to broadcast both live and to record for future showing. The theater department is looking to do something, just kind of a fun night among their members, both those that have been in past performances and did not necessarily participate this year, but are still, this is for current high school students only, but our students in theater, they want to just kind of get together. And we think we have a socially distant, COVID-19 respectful plan to just come into the school and to watch a movie and be in each other's company on April 16th. The traditional Academic and Excellence Awards that's held during the school day is scheduled again on May 13th as a virtual ceremony, again, all subject to change. The virtual spring musical, that's the You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, is going to be available for viewing on the evening of May 21st through the evening of May 22nd. The annual scholarship and awards night that's typically held in the McGrath Performing Arts Center right now is scheduled to be virtual, but we have a plan in place to pivot. It might be a combination of student in-person, but virtual presentation of scholarship and awards. It may not be that, but our thinking is, and this really is a Karen Baker O'Brien program, and she's been very good at communicating with me, keeping us very much in the loop, and quite honestly doing yeoman's work and doing the bulk of the work for this program. But we talk and we again are working together to make sure that we can pivot if we're able to. We have a senior prom on the calendar. We have the senior promenade and the senior prom on the calendar, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to hold that at the Danversport Yacht Club on June 1st. The difference right now is that it's only for class of 2021 students enrolled at the high school, and that's simply driven by the ability to accommodate the capacity. 209 or so students in the senior class. It's for no other reason other than that. If we start to allow outside guests or underclassmen at this time, then that would potentially exceed our capacity to have the prom indoors at the Danversport Yacht Club. The next event, and I'll come back to the prom on this one as well, is we have something new. We're calling it a senior social at the Stevens Estate at Osgood Hill in North Andover. If anyone's familiar with that venue, it's a very beautiful spot. It has an outdoor tented area with lighting. We have reserved that for, we have one of their recommended caterers that's packaging food to be available to students. There's going to be a disc jockey available. We have we're telling the students we have a surprise entertainment for them. We're not telling them what it is, but we're hoping that will, the intrigue will engage them even more to want to come. The good thing about this event, it could be a good event just in of itself. The good thing about it is if for some reason we are not able to hold a traditional indoor prom at Danversport, the senior social at the Stevens Estate could become a more formal affair. So the idea of dressing up and the picture taking and all that would typically be going on at a prom could be this outdoor event if we need it. If we're able to have the prom at Danversport, and I'm hopeful that we will, then the senior social at the Stevens Estate for the senior class would become a more casual dress event. Then we've, again, something new, and this is actually for both the senior class and the junior class, is a classic, what we're calling a classic summer fun event at Kimball Farms. So this is kind of spending the day there, bus, transported by bus. That's the case for all of these events, by the way. together as a class of students to Kimball Farms and enjoy all of the activities that are there, and the food and the ice cream and such games, and just kind of a nice bonding experience for the seniors as they kind of wind their time down and lead to graduation. I'll talk a little bit about a little bit of a nuance for the junior event, class of 2022, in just a minute. We're doing something a little bit different with an athletic awards ceremony. Mr. Druin was very intent on having a spring awards ceremony, which is great, but we made a decision in a conversation about it might be nice to go back and recognize the fall and the winter and the fall 2 athletes as well. So what we're hoping to do here is to have 2 ceremonies on the same evening. This would be on Thursday, June 10th. We're talking right now kind of like a 5 to 6:30 ceremony for maybe fall and winter, and then maybe 6:30 to 8 for fall 2 and spring, or something of that nature, to honor all of our student athletes, and again capturing those that maybe did not have a ceremony for an earlier sports season. And then following that, on June 10th, we have for the class of 2021 we've contracted with a company that is going to bring kind of this giant, I think it's a 36-foot or 32-foot, I think it is, 32-foot outdoor inflatable movie screen. It's a company that this is their business. It's called Funflix. We've already contracted with them for an outdoor movie on the baseball field. We chose to use the grass field because we also are working now with the class advisors, Mr. Burgoyne and Ms. Bowden, who are, by the way, have been doing an awful lot of good work with us and the students of the senior class to support them. We're going to have some food trucks available as well, Cookie Monster, ice cream, pizza, that kind of thing, and watch a movie. So that's going to happen at about 9 o'clock on that evening of June the 10th. We've left it that the students are going to bring to the administration 3 movies that we will then ultimately pick the one that we think is best for them all to watch as a high school class. That event we are going to ask, or we're going to allow or offer, I should say, is probably a better word, the seniors to bring one Tewksbury Memorial High School guest if they would like. So this is an opportunity for them to maybe bring a junior or a sophomore or a freshman, sibling, friend, or whatever, that outside of the senior class. So we're excited. They were very excited about that. I think it sounds like a fun event. And then we have graduation. We have graduation on hopefully on June 11th. That's the scheduled date right now. We have offered to the superintendent and the assistant superintendent for their consideration. They endorsed that I really wanted to plan for an outdoor ceremony. That's what we're going with. We're going with an outdoor ceremony, but the format for that will change based on the guidance. We don't know if that's going to be kind of a broad audience outdoor ceremony, or might it be a smaller audience because we're limited on how many people we can have, and it might be each graduate with a certain number of guests in a very different kind of a format. But we think for health and safety, going outside is the smart thing to do. And I think, again, the idea of being able to have a graduation ceremony has been, more traditional, even though the venue might be different, has been very well received. We've announced that would be at 6 p.m., by the way. But we've also announced that families should reserve June 12th and June 13th as possible rain dates if they're needed for an 11 o'clock ceremony on whichever day. And I have every confidence that we're not going to even need the rain dates. It's going to be a beautiful day on June 11th. I have a very good track record with outdoor graduation ceremonies. I'm 15 for 17. So I'm sure the sun will shine on the class of 2021 on June 11th. How could it not? The little nuance to the Kimball Farm event for the juniors is that they lost their junior prom this spring, and they really, quite honestly, they didn't anticipate even having the opportunity to do that. A venue wasn't booked, but that's not of anybody's fault. I think just it was a resignation that their fundraising was down. And the ability to have a junior prom in a traditional way just wasn't going to happen. So what we talked with them about, actually it was just yesterday, is the idea of some sort of a fall formal event, you know, I've seen things like a fall fling, a fall harvest, whatever it is. And so we offered to them that idea of something in September or October when they come back to school, kind of kick off the school year in a formal way, replace their junior prom that they missed. And if they wanted to do that, that was something that they should, you know, start to work on now and commit to some fundraising and some event planning and locating a venue where they might be able to have that. My sense is that they were thrilled with that opportunity because again, it's something they missed out on, but now they can look ahead to maybe capturing that in the fall. And so I think that's a pretty good rundown for all of you on the spring highlights. Again, I'm excited to be, you know, talking about things that are so important to the life of a high school student, particularly a high school senior. And I will continue with the help of others and kind of the attitude that is shared by others to be very positive, be very honest with the students and share with them, you know, where things are at as things evolve and guidelines change. And, you know, if we're less restrictive, great. If we're more restrictive, I think we have some good options available to us. And I think that's been communicated. I hope that's been communicated very clearly. And then there's still the business of education and academics, right? That's really, you know, that's the primary reason we're here. But all of these other social things are hugely important in the life of high school. And I know that, and I certainly respect that. But we are doing some very thoughtful planning around assessments. And I can assure all of you as a committee, and certainly the superintendent and assistant superintendent know this, but we are poised to offer the SAT at the high school on Tuesday, April 13th. That's we've got just a hair, it might be about 124 juniors, I think, are registered, or give or take one or two, but that's about the number. So that's a big, you know, that's a big day for us. And I think, again, you know, we're trying very hard to keep our students focused. Not that they need a lot of work or support in that area. I'm really, you know, as I said earlier, I'm really impressed with how well the students have tried this year and the effort that they've put forth. We're continuing to plan, have been planning. We've been adjusting our planning for the administration of the Mcas for all three tests: English, language arts, math, and biology, and with the English language arts and math being for both the current sophomores and juniors. So, you know, my guess is that the information about Mcas is still evolving, and, you know, we'll continue to keep an eye on that. But, you know, the work that needs to get done will get done, and we'll be positioned to do what we need to do for sure. And then we have, you know, Tewksbury Memorial High School has a very good and strong, robust advanced placement program, which is, you know, I think something to be very, very proud of. And we have a good number of students involved and enrolled in our classes this year. And, you know, they're preparing for, you know, a really a crunch time, if you will, for the period of May 3rd through June 4th, when we will kick off with the administration of all of our advanced placement exams through a schedule that's been prescribed by the College Board this year. And it is substantially different than what people are used to, with an option of some digital exams, some virtual exams to take place. And we're taking advantage of those where we can with the input of those teachers that are teaching the classes. So there's a lot going on at the high school. It's not anything unusual in terms of its scope of planning. You know, the one big variable is, you know, it's not something that can't be minimized, and it's the effect of the pandemic. But I think as a school committee, it's important for you to know from me as the principal, you know, only a short time, but I'd like to think the experience I have has been valuable. I hope it has been. But the people that are in place at the school and that have been there before I arrived in July are I feel, you know, so strongly that they are people that you can feel very, very good about. There's a lot to be proud of at that school, and the work that had been done way before I arrived to create a culture there that really cares about students and demonstrates a willingness to get the job done despite adversity is something that you probably all well know, but it really begs repeating. And I'm proud to be working at that school this year. It's been a lot of fun. In a weird way, it's giving me something to do at a time when I don't know that I would have had much else to be able to do in retirement. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun, and it's I really feel very valued, and I hope the contributions that I've made the last 7 or so months are positive, and I certainly get the sense that they are, but I'm hopeful that they are for sure. So I thank you for some time tonight to share with you some of the work that's been going on, and commend you and thank you too, because you're all volunteers. You know, we're getting paid to come in and do this, but you folks are volunteering, and I think you really, you know, I don't know that the gratitude has been appropriate for all of you, but I want you to know that I certainly, and I know others on this meeting, appreciate what you're doing and the support you're giving to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. Very thorough and robust report. I'll start with our Vice Chair, Mr. Cutlass. Any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I just want to thank Mr. Bernard for a great presentation filled with information, and thanks for all the hard work that had to go into preparing all that, and hopefully we can do a lot of that in person. And I'm just happy that we have Mr. Bernard at the helm at the high school, and hope he'll be back next year too as well. But thank you, Mr. Bernard, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cutlass. Mrs. Demos, our clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to say to Mr. Bernard that I appreciate his openness and his positive nature. His collaboration with the students and all the stakeholders up there at Tewksbury High School is much appreciated. You know, we're definitely lucky to have you leading the way. Just want to thank you for the detailed and thorough report here. It really gives us a clear understanding of what is actually going on up there, and that there are equal opportunities no matter what your interest level is as far as your extracurricular and after school activities are concerned. I'm excited for the students and the families. I think that, you know, you have an open mind and you have great plans, and are, you know, I like to hear the word pivot. You know, you're ready to go one way or the other. There will be something that these kids will always remember, and you know, you and your staff to be commended for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Demos. Mr. Stadman.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. I want to thank you for all the work. I know you've come in and you hit the ground running. You know, unfortunately, Jack was on another call and he wasn't able to join, but you know, he speaks highly of you, and
he's great.
No, you don't have to tell me that. You know, he's a good egg.
He sure is.
But you know, I know all the hard work that I see with, you know, the countless emails that I see from you, and you know, with things that, you know, you're up all the time with emails coming back and forth, and whenever there's a question about, you know, different things, you're answering emails and things like that. Obviously, this isn't a you know, a review of your job, but you know, I know that you've been doing all this work to try to get some normalcy back to the class of 2021 and class of 2022, and definitely with meeting all the stakeholders and things like that. I can definitely appreciate you know, all the work that you're doing and meeting with all this. So keep up the good work, and hope to see some more.
I will. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, with that, I'll echo the same, Mr. Bernard. Thank you, obviously, for your effort. It's fantastic, and your attempts to go above and beyond to be able to communicate not only with our students and their families, but with us as well. We're very confident. We're happy that you're with us. And as Mr. Cutlass says, we hope you stay around for another year, because you're certainly doing great things by us at the Tewksbury Memorial High School. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Keith, you missed me, but I didn't have anything crazy to add. I just want to say thank you, John, for stepping in and in really difficult times. Some people step in and step up, and other people step back, and you've certainly stepped in and stepped up. I've heard some great feedback from the communication throughout the year, in particular the senior parents being excited about some of the potential opportunities coming to end the year. So just thank you. It's what a year it's been, and thank you for doing the job you did.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
My apologies, Mr. Wilson.
It's all right. I think you think I'm already gone.
Yeah. Just don't be shooting that basketball, all right? That goes on the shelf.
Wait, is Mr. Wilson still here? I thought we already said bye to him.
Yeah, no, you're stuck with me for another couple hours or however long this meeting goes.
Couple
Who
more
knows?
weeks.
We may have a special meeting before my term's up. I'll be actually looking at my emails.
Can we?
All right. With that, I'll check in with Jason. Jason, do we have anyone for Citizens Forum?
No calls, Mr. Chairman.
Great. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our clerk, Mrs. Demos, for the approval of minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 10th, 2021.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the February 10th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Demos, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. We'll go back over to Mrs. Demos for our submission and payment of bills, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the school department payroll for the period ending February 18th, 2021 to be approved and certified in the amounts and categories as shown for a total amount of $1,443,418.03.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the payroll period ending February 18th, 2021 in the amount of $1,443,000, my apologies, $418.03. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Demos, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. And the chair votes aye as well. Mrs. Demos?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the school department payroll for the period ending March 4th, 2021 to be approved and certified in the amounts and categories as shown as total amount of $1,358,415.89.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the payroll period ending March 4th, 2021 in the amount of $1,358,415.89. How say you, Mr. Cutlass?
Aye.
Mrs. Demos?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. I'll do one final check-in with Jason. Do we have any callers, Jason?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a caller on the line.
Okay, great. Could you please put him through, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes, you're on with the school committee. Could I please get your name and your address for the record?
Okay. It's Maureen Castiglione, Whipple Road.
Okay. How can I help you this evening?
Excuse me. Yes, I had a question.
Sure.
In the agenda on the appointment of Eileen Osborne as the assistant business manager, with an interim principal taking a vice principal from the high school, I'm wondering what the sort of plan is. I don't know if you can hear that or not. That was my question. That's what I was calling about.
Sure, no problem. Mr. Malone?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Certainly, we're in the midst of that. That is fairly recent news that Dr. Osborne will be taking on the assistant business manager position, and we are actively working to certainly have the high school leadership team stabilized for next year. Her position has been posted, and we are continuing in conversations with Mr. Bernard at this time as well.
Okay. Do we have anyone else, Jason?
No other calls, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir. With that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Malone for the superintendent report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of brief items. Just a reminder that we are still in the process of piloting pool testing under the direction of Elaine Walsh, our former lead nurse. We hope to have a pilot with many of our staff going as soon as the end of this week or into next week. We're excited about that. We continue to promote any opportunities for any of our school personnel to get vaccinated. There was new information that came out today that we put out to all staff in regards to a governor's announcement that he would be prioritizing or reserving COVID vaccine times at mass vaccination sites on the next few Saturdays for educational personnel. We've also had some good luck with many of our staff members working through the state site or through the CVS site, getting some shot appointments. But again, we're not going to be satisfied until we have all of our school personnel vaccinated. So we'll keep working in that direction. Just a reminder, we continue with open negotiations with the Tewksbury Teachers Association in regards to more in-person time and the impact of that. We did have a negotiation session today that was broadcast at 9 a.m. and we have another one tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Also a reminder that task force meets again on Monday. We hope to be sharing some information in regards to a joint Tewksbury Teachers Association and district staff survey with some information to the task force on that. And Mr. Druin has recently put out some spectator information in regards to this current Fall 2 season, which includes football, cheering, and track. And we are going to initiate starting having a limited number of home fans for home games, and that is being consistent throughout the league. Hopefully with the numbers still going in the direction and hopefully with some restrictions being lifted before this season's up, we'll even see the ability to increase the amount of fans we can have at these activities. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Unless there's any questions, I'll turn it over to Ms. Regan.
I'll just check in with my colleagues. Sue, please. Mr. Cutlass, any questions?
No, I'm all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Demos?
Nothing tonight.
Great, thank you. Mr. Stadman?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. And Mr. Wilson?
I am all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And not so much as much an announcement, I guess. I did get an email or two today regarding the in-person broadcast, and we're going to make sure we do a better job tomorrow. Some microphones were left on, and apparently it was difficult for some people to hear. I have spoken to the superintendent, and we're going to make sure we're more diligent tomorrow. Part of the reason having those open public meetings is people can see what we're doing, and we certainly want to be able to make sure that we're clear and that everyone can be heard and we're messaging out. So thank you to those that reached out to let me know that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Regan for the Assistant Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 3 brief updates, and they all exist in your consent agenda. And truly, it's just to honor and thank some amazing educators in our district. And I want to start with 3 educators, 3 master educators who offered their time to mentor not only former Tewksbury students, but future educators, Ms. Karen Baker O'Brien, Ms. Julie Taggart, and Ms. Donna Sacramone Green. We thank them so much to bring in new educators and new counselors, not only into our schools, but help our community members build upon their career choices. The next highlight I'd like to offer is to Ms. Deb Mugford, our Food Nutrition Services Director, and her whole team. You can see that not only once, but twice in both the January and the February official publication of School Nutrition Association, Deb and her team were highlighted for providing fun holiday giveaways and other amazing treats to our students. So this team does not only an amazing job feeding our students, but also bringing surprises and smiles to their faces. So thanks to Deb and her team. And then I hope you had an opportunity to read the Massachusetts Foreign Language Association highlight on Senora Grasa Dudley. You heard a little bit about her in Mr. Bernard's presentation, but congratulations to Grasa. She's being spotlighted in this publication. This is quite an honor. This is a wonderful, detailed highlight how Grasa not only motivates and supports and enriches the foreign language and social emotional learning experiences of our students at the high school. Her creativity knows no bounds. Grasa continues to advocate for world language, English language, and global competency, not only through her courses, but through the Seal of Biliteracy. I know I speak for all of us when I say we're just so proud of Grasa and thankful for all she has done for our students. If you take a look at just some of the creative pictures and the explanation of what she has done to support and motivate our students through a very trying time, I think you would agree with me. So that concludes my update. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Regan. Mr. Cutlass, any questions?
No, all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Demos.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Stadman?
No questions. Thank you.
And Mr. Wilson?
All set, thank you.
Okay, quick check-in with our business manager, Mr. Dave Libby. Do you have anything to add other than the budget?
I believe I've said enough tonight, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Libby.
I second that.
Well, I got you, Mr. Wilson. Do you have any comments or concerns regarding tonight's consent agenda?
I do not.
Okay, Mr. Stadman?
I have nothing, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Great, Mrs. Demos?
No, nothing tonight.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Cutlass?
All set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and a quick check-in with Mrs. Regan. Was there anything on here specific that you needed to highlight for us this evening?
No, thank you.
Great. With that, what is the pleasure of the board at this time?
I'll
Mr.
make a
Chair.
motion to, go ahead.
Make a motion to accept the tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's consent agenda as presented. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Demos, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Moving on to committee reports, we'll start with Mr. Cutlass for the elementary school building.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right, construction still going along very well, on time and on budget right now. Foundation completely done, steel frame completely done. The site is filled with equipment and machinery and materials. They're approximately 26% done. We have a building committee meeting tomorrow night to go over more things, and everything looks good so far. They're still working on where to relocate the administration to, but everything is going along pretty well so far with that project. So that's my report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Cutlass. On time and on budget. Love those words.
Yeah.
The Tewksbury CPAC, Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, we haven't had any meetings, so I have nothing new to report. I just, to folks that are on Facebook and following the Friends of the Tewksbury Special Education PAC, there's a lot of neat programming that is taking place, and there are constant updates and different things which are brought up. So it's good to be plugged into that and just pay attention, because there may be an opportunity to either learn something new or gain some different experiences, talk to some folks who are dealing with similar situations. So that's it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And I think we're all aware by now the Wellness Advisory Committee is not meeting, so don't have that update. Seeing no policy changes, proposals, or adoption, I'm going to turn the floor over to Mrs. Regan for our A and B old business. If you would go over those, and then we can check in and proceed to the C, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What you have in front of you that's been emailed and updated on our website as well is the new and updated Mcas testing memo for testing dates for our students in the town of Tewksbury. You will see that the updates came to us this Monday, and those dates have been filled in on the memo. Again, this is posted on the district website for parents to find. We'll continue to adjust this if the state continues to adjust that timeline as well. I'll move to the second item in old business. Today was a full professional development day. Students had the day off, but our teachers were immersed in primarily two of our district major goals. The AM session really focused on content teams, assessment practices, and adjusting practice based on looking at data and student data. This is a very critical skill and work that our teachers are involved in on a regular basis, but even more so important as we look forward to addressing some of those gaps our students are going to have coming back to more in person or a regular type of schooling and learning. So we also, you can see on the long list, there's some attention to special ed focused content for certain roles. And then there was some work, you can't see this in the high school agenda, but you know, the teams that are looking forward to the new civics project worked on some of that planning today too. So the morning sessions were content related, while the PM session focused on how we can approach equity and diversity and inclusion for all of our students through a curriculum bias audit or review process. Our teachers learned to use some new digital tools. They had some consultants speak with them as well, and some special speakers, some student speakers in their presentation. But I want to just give you a little insight as to what I'm talking about as in the curriculum bias tool. These tools are used to look at different types of representation within our curriculum resources. For example, diversity of characters or diversity and inclusion of from authors. Also representation, you know, are the resources we're using visually diverse, not only around race, but also around gender identity and cultures, and then social justice. Does our curricular resources include non-dominant populations and or do they not? So this was an eye-opening exercises for our educators today, a very valuable exercise as we look to not only look at new curriculum, but what are we using in our class? Are the resources representing the students in front of us? And if they're not, this is good discussion to have, and we certainly don't throw out all of the resources we have if we do find that, but how can we supplement and add to the resources we're using to educate our students? I'm trying to be brief, but I really need to thank our principals are still online here. This was an enormous undertaking from our principals, our teachers, and especially I have to give a shout out to Ms. Karen Baker O'Brien, Karen Cronin, Judy McGinnis, the three directors and administrators that lead our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. So teachers helping to train other teachers, and this is where it really gets good. So it was a great day, and I thank all of you that helped us get there today.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Regan. Any questions or comments, Mr. Cutlass?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Demos.
Nope, thank you for the update.
Great, Mr. Wilson.
No, just thank you for, you know, it sounds like it was a great day. So thank you for coordinating, and thank you for everyone else who probably made it a really successful day. I think it's special.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Stadman?
No questions. Sounds good.
The chair has no questions as well. Going to turn it over now to Mr. Malone with the ever-changing dynamic of more in-person learning time for his most recent update. The floor is yours, Mr. Malone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as the committee, and I think the community recalls, we had a special school committee meeting last week where we outlined the district's plan for a phased-in full return to school. We certainly spent a great deal of time on that planning. Our intent was this evening to share that finalized plan that we put a great deal of work in and seek a school committee vote to move forward with that. On or about Monday, we had received notice that DESE would be coming out with their own plan and guidance, which they did in writing yesterday afternoon. It so happens that most of their guidance and regulatory information does dovetail well into what our plan was originally going to be. However, as part of their guidance, they are not requiring a school committee vote. However, tonight, what we'd like to do is do a little bit of a crosswalk on the state level guidance compared to the plan that we presented last week and show where there may be some differences. There are far more similarities than differences. Most of the differences are specific to the timeline of execution on this. But also, to be clear, the state through DESE has put out a great deal of guidance per the pandemic. They have used the term guidance, but in reality, this is a student learning time regulation. So this is regulatory, and if we do not follow this plan, there are consequences that could come with that, to include additional school days added on to the year, possibly Saturdays, summer days, and also a potential impact on our Chapter 70 funding. Again, the good news is that the statewide regulatory guidance is very similar to the plan that we presented. And we'll walk through that information right now so that people can see the difference between what we presented last week and what is now part of the DESE regulatory guidance. So on our intro to our plan, what we're hoping to do is amend our initial plan, which is based on new DESE guidance that came out yesterday. Other than that, that part of that presentation stays the same. Next slide, please. Thank you. Again, our reasons for why now stay the same. That same rationale for why we're executing this plan absolutely stays the same. You know, what information is being considered? We had listed down all the information and resources that we had brought in to try to influence our plan. Obviously, the newest updates to this are in the red. A new survey will go out to all families coming next week. What we want to do is utilize this presentation as an update to last week's presentation, share this information out with parents along with the DESE guidance and regulatory information so that they can analyze that information so that they'll have to be able to answer that survey the best way possible. And what we're going to be asking in that survey is if parents want to switch the current plan that they're in other words, if they're remote, do they want to be part of the full in-person return? Or if they are current hybrid, do they want to stay hybrid moving into the full in-person return or move to remote? So we want to analyze that data to see where the shifting enrollment will be in those two pieces so that we can plan and staff appropriately. And what we've also added is certainly that new DESE guidance and regulatory information as one of the strong pieces of information that will guide us in this. Just an update to some of the statistical data. Last week, we reported that the townwide positivity rate was 2.98. As of last Thursday, that has been gone down to 1.63%, which is also a great indicator to keep moving in this direction. So it certainly aligns with both where our plan was going and where the state plan is. So that's good information. Our current caseload of positive COVID-19 cases in the school district was down to 7 as of earlier today, which again, anytime we're in single digits as a caseload over a 2-week period of time is certainly good information. You know, we're looking at, again, the impact on remote learning academy. We currently have, we're not looking at any in-person models that would impact RLA schedule, RLA staffing, potential RLA students to return to in-person learning. We want to certainly, if there are students who are in the remote learning academy that want to return, we want to find out that information and see where we can support that. DESE in their regulatory guidance states that they recommend a transition period to in-person learning to be no more than 4 to 6 weeks after April 5th. That's why we want to do a survey next week to see who would like to transition in preparation for that April 5th date because after that, it could be up to a 4 to 6 week wait if it's not done at that time. And 4 to 6 weeks is going to brush up against the end of the school year anyways. Family decisions to change instructional modes from the survey will, at this time, may impact staff distribution. If we have a large number of students and family choosing to leave remote learning and come into full in-person, we'll have to make adjustments that way. If we have it going the other way, we may have to make adjustments that way as well. So we want to get that information and see what the impact is going to be on staffing. Again, we're still considering some of those overall staffing considerations as we move to all in person, the American Disabilities Act accommodations. The child care accommodations, we expect that we will see some of those will diminish due to the fact that this is a state regulatory guidance that all districts in Massachusetts will need to follow. So as we see that, and all of the districts will be going back to be in full to meet those regulatory requirements, we anticipate that there'll be less need for child care requirements amongst our staff. And we continue to staff that RLA piece. Again, our current mitigation strategies, we continue to work at that. We're continuing trying to develop other ones. We've been working with the TTA to look at what additional PPE or other mitigation strategies they would like to look at moving forward. We're doing that as far as open negotiations, more in-person time. So we continue to look in that direction. Pool testing pilot is still underway. They had to wait for some final supplies coming in. They could start as early as this week, more likely next week, again, with volunteer staff. We'll see how that pilot goes with staff, how we produce with that. If we have success, then we'll certainly offer that out to families as well. Again, that change in the COVID vaccinations where educators are eligible as of tomorrow. We hope to see increased opportunities for all of our educators and staff members to have an opportunity to get that vaccine. That's certainly essential for all of us. We want to make sure that gets done. We'd love to see that certainly achieved, that goal prior to an all-student return. And we're going to do our best to try to ensure that we're assisting all of our staff members in doing that. Again, that new transportation guidance that we talked about last week is out, so that helps quite a bit. We were informed today that there may be some new transportation guidance coming out specific to special education. So certainly if that occurs, that will even increase our opportunities to utilize transportation to bring all of our students back. Lunch at the school. Certainly lunch has been an issue voiced in the open negotiation by our staff. We've, through Assistant Superintendent Regan, we've taken some staff and administrators to observe lunch at other schools in Billerica, Tingsboro, and North Middlesex Regional. So the ability to go and see how other districts are doing lunch, look at some best practices. We have some great ideas in the district. We're trying to gather some furniture resources and other pieces right now. We're very confident we can certainly support all of our students in lunch during the full day. And we're hopefully going to work with our staff to make sure they've gained confidence in that piece as well. There is a specific part in the new DESE guidance that addresses lunch. It continues with the 6-foot distance between students when they're eating, and that is typically due to the fact that their mask is down. So, we're looking at those specific pieces. Again, we're very confident in those details can be worked out at each school building, and we'll continue to look at best practices around the state if that need be. But again, we're very hopeful in this direction. Again, same information specific to distancing science that has come out and that we labeled. What we would add to this is that the newest DESE guidance and regulatory information that came out yesterday very specifically identifies 3 feet as the safe distance to operate in schools. So we'll add that as a resource to this piece as well. Again, also looking at that distancing, reflecting on the previous parent surveying we did around parents' comfort level with the 3-foot distancing. We continue to work with the Tewksbury Teachers Association in open negotiations to look at how we can make areas safe for staff and students, what additional mitigation strategies we need to put in place. We're very open to looking at different options. We've been given some options from the TTA, which we've actually already collected and agreed to. So we'll continue to work in that direction. If there's new mitigation strategies that surface, and they're going to help keep people safe, we will certainly move in that direction as well.
Okay, Superintendent Malone, I'm going to just briefly review the images of our differing classrooms and the work that was done over the summer to put desks in those classrooms to see how many desks or tables could we fit, bringing students back at a minimum of 3 feet. So you've seen these images. This is the Heath, Brook doing Trahan and North Street sort of mock-up. We have the Ryan and the Wynn, and then a high school classroom. So what I want to do now is show you some of the data analysis we've been doing with class sizes. And what you see in front of you here is an average class size at the varying grade levels, grades kindergarten through 6. When it says grade 0, that's kindergarten. The student average class size is if all of our cohort A, B, and C students came back. And you can see, based on the maximum number of desks or tables we can fit into our classrooms, those class averages easily fit that minimum feet. When you see this team average over here at the Ryan grade 5 and the Ryan grade 6, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, a team in grade 5 is 2 homerooms and a team in grade 6 is 4 homerooms. I'll drill down a little bit further, at least looking at one of our elementary schools. This is a view of the Heath, Brook, grades K through 2. Again, keeping in mind that classrooms can fit between 20 and 22 students with either desks or tables. And I want to show you, so if we look at the Heath, Brook and we look at kindergarten, there are 5 kindergarten classrooms. Again, if all of our students in cohorts A, B, and C were to return, this is what the class size would look like. The average class size at the Heath, Brook kindergarten is 15.2. If our students who are in RLA, now again, our elementary students, RLA students were not assigned to an original homeroom. We have 17 Heath, Brook kindergarten RLA students. In red over here, that just tells us how many teachers. This one's 2 teachers and an aide. But if we took those 17 students and dispersed them over the 5 kindergarten rooms, we're looking at about an average of 3.4 students per room. And if you do that math, we can see we are in good shape to not meet our maximum seating in each of those classes. We look at grade 1 and 2, and you can see the same, what the average class size is. And what would happen, what would be the addition of our RLA students if all of those students chose to come to in-person learning. Guaranteed, all of those students are not going to choose to come back to in-person learning, but this is the data analysis we're doing across the board. If we look at the Ryan School, grade 5, now again, I want to just reiterate, the Ryan can fit 22 or more, depending on the room, desks at a minimum of 3 feet apart. Because our 5th grade teams, there's 6 of them, there are 2 homerooms per team. If we do that math, that's 44 students maximum per team because of the 2 homerooms per team. If you look at our total team class sizes, we're in good shape should every RLA student and every cohort A, B, and C student choose to come back to grade 5 in person. So these are numbers right now. We know that not all will be looking to come back. I just show you grade 6 because as we move on to the Win, we know that our grade 6 teams are 4 homerooms per team. So again, at that 22 plus-ish number of students at a minimum of 3 feet apart, that's a max of 88 students per team. And you can see the total number of students that were assigned to each of the 3 6th grade teams. Let's look at grade 7 for a minute. And what you're seeing in front of you here is if all students in the cohorts A, B, and C were to be part of the in-person learning phase that you're going to see in a minute, the WIN, we know that they can fit 22 to 24 students per class, and that would be a maximum of 88 to 96 students per team. Again, the WIN grade 7 and 8, just like grade 6 at the Ryan, are 4 homerooms per team. Right now, all of our cohort A, B, and C students average 18.3 students per class or per homeroom, and the team average, you can see, is 73.3 and 69.6 grade 8. We're going to look at just an 8th grade breakdown of the numbers. And you can see the breakdown of each homeroom. Again, each 8th grade team has 4 homerooms. You can see the cohort A, B, and C numbers, what those totals would look like in each of those homerooms. And then if those RLA students that were formally assigned to those teams were to all come back, and if they were to go back into that team enrollment, you can see if we added up each of these 4 homerooms, we do not hit the maximum of 88 to 96 students per team. It's not apples to apples when we look at average class sizes at the high school, but what I can tell you right now, when we looked at the entire list of 314 classes for cohorts A, B, and C, currently, with all of those hybrid students returning to in-person learning at the high school, only 3 out of 314 classes exceeds 24 students. Currently, if all RLA students were to request in-person, the in-person learning model, and join those cohort A, B, and C students in person, approximately 40 of our 314 classes will exceed 24 students. So I think this is where, we need to really analyze the potential of these students all coming back. We know we have the ability to utilize larger group space like LGI 1, LGI 2, the library and the auditorium. It's really what blocks those become available that we're going to need to analyze that data as we move further into this phase. So the potential overflow space may also be used when larger classrooms are not available. For example, if we have a classroom of 30, one of these 3 even, we may need to, if the LGI, if all of these are full, then potentially an overflow space may be used while some students are able to access the class remotely from in the school. So there's a lot of moving pieces to the high school schedule. So now let me just describe, and you'll see some new text that's in red and some crossed out text from our previous proposed phase 1. So this is the new amended phase 1, which is slated to begin on Monday, April 5th. All of our current hybrid students return 5 days per week, full school days. So this would now be from April 5th through the end of the school year. All elementary students in all of these 5 schools, all cohorts A, B, and C will return to in-person for the full school day and under a traditional schedule. Again, we'll need to assess RLA in-person requests to return to K through 6 schools. Whoops, sorry about that. Let me just go backwards. And its impact on staffing as we continue to plan this phase, this first phase. You can see that the second part of phase 2 is crossed out, and I'll get to that in a minute when we amend phase 2. What you're seeing in front of you here is the kindergarten through 4 full day schedule. And again, this represents all A, B, and C cohorts, all in, all week, all day. And this is a sample schedule of what a class may look like for one of those K through 4 classes, or a weekly schedule. I just wanted you to note the 4-hour hybrid schedule has been deleted from the presentation because that's no longer part of the phase 1 planning. We're looking here at a proposed phase 1 sample full day schedule for students in grades 5 through 6 at the Ryan. And you can see, as we described before, these are the 3 cohorts all coming in person. They start their homeroom. These are the time frames for all of their blocks 1 through 4. They have 2 specialists throughout the school day and a 25-minute lunch. Let me just briefly describe our amended proposed Phase 2, which is slated to start April 28th of this year. And per the new DESE guidance, on April 28th, Wednesday, April 28th, grades 7 through 8 students will return to all in-person full school day. What we've decided as a district as well, grades 9 through 12 will also return to an all-in-person full school day to address the subsequent requirement that we know will be announced later in April. We figured sooner than later, let's get our high school students back as well on April 28th, along with our grades 7 and 8 students. So we will be returning to traditional daily schedules for grades 7 through 12. And once again, for these grade bands, we will assess the RLA in-person request to return to both the WIN and the high school and its impact on staffing as we continue to plan this phase. What you see here is our WIN school schedule. It's much like the Ryan, where all the students would be together starting on Wednesday, the 28th. And they'd be in person, they'd be in homeroom. There are 4 core blocks, as well as a skill block, 2 specialists, and lunch. And lunch is embedded in that 4th core block. And then finally, on Wednesday, 28th, here is our TMHS waterfall schedule. It will pick up on Wednesday where it left off from Tuesday. But now what we have is a full school day that starts at 7:30 and goes through 1:50. You'll see that the 5 waterfall block schedule is included here, and that a lunch will be included in one of those blocks. RLA students that will remain in RLA will follow the full day schedule, just like they're following their course schedule now at the high school.
So I think the overall pieces that change from the our plan that we presented last week is really the timing in phasing. We had a 2-step phase that we presented last week. That was going to begin on actually the same time of April 5th, which was going to be a all-in on the current hybrid schedule of 4 hours in person. The major difference is in the state regulatory guidance, it is all students in elementary on April 5th for a full day of school. So that's one of the major differences. We had planned to get there in phase 2. So the change for us is there is no phase 2, it's phase 1, and we move forward with that. The specific date for the middle school and what we've included that with the high school of April 28th. We had staggered that piece in phase 2 a little bit more. This will be an all-in on April 28th for middle school and high school for a full day of school. So the plans coincide with it, gets us to the same endpoint. The state regulatory guidance is very clear and very concrete in its timelines, which is a little different from the plan we had presented last week. Ms. Demos used the term pivot, and that's exactly what we've been able to do here in regards to that. I think a lot of the legwork and planning that we've already done puts us in a great position to make that pivot and do that piece. Our next objective is to get this kind of large bulk of information out to parents in the community right away, and then do that survey in regards to anyone who is interested in changing their models now that they know the new information. Once we have the data for anyone changing the models, seeing where that may impact staffing. And once we have that information, we'll have a more direct sense of those class sizes. But again, since we had presented this last week, we just wanted to quickly go over the changes in relation to that. But again, and overall, even if all of our RLA students decided they were going to come back to full in-person learning, we do believe we can support that spacing-wise, distance-wise. We don't anticipate that will be the case. However, if it does occur, we will be able to support those students for a full day of learning in person at all of our schools. Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if the committee has any questions with some of this updated information.
Right, yeah, no, I appreciate the update, and I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Cutlass for any comments or discussions we might have. I'll start with you, Mr. Cutlass.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I just want to thank Mr. Malone and Mrs. Regan again. I thought last week's plan and presentation was outstanding, and this one's even better. It gets them in earlier, and it gets them in full time. So I know we can do it. I hope we can do it. You guys really planned everything out pretty well, and I think it looks great, and I'm happy for our students and our families that they're going to be going back full time to school. And if we have to pivot, we will, just like you did this time. But I think it's a great plan, and I'm very pleased with that. So thank you, Mr. Malone. Thank you, Mrs. Regan. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cutlass. Clerk, Mrs. Demos?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I totally understand that things are now, being delegated by the state versus the local level. So we've lost a lot of the options of doing a slow roll into this. What I do want to say is that I'm grateful for Mr. Harding, Mr. McGinnis, Mr. Ware, Mr. Bernard, Mr. Malone for escorting me through the buildings so that I could see firsthand what these classrooms will look like with the numbers in the cohorts that are predicted to be in that we've seen on these slides. I just want to plead with the stakeholders here that we really need to be looking at every room differently, not just building and grade levels. As I walked through one of the buildings per se, we have it listed here that it's 22 to 23 desks. And when I was in there, they had lost their prep table and all their supplies. And there was 20 desks in there with the teacher's desk, and it was pretty tight. So I just want to be sure that when we are looking to create a policy and a procedure about calling back students, that we're looking room to room and not just building to building, because I do think that every class within the building is a little bit different, even up at the high school. One of the rooms that I was in was really kind of a funky corner shaped, that it may have had like 6 or 7 less desks in there versus the other room. So please just know that that's one thing that's very important to me, is that we're looking at getting as many kids in those rooms, but also being cognizant of the square footage per classroom when we're doing so, and not just doing a blanket number per building. Other than that, really our hands are tied from what our guidelines are to follow. I am excited to get the kiddos back in, but I just want to make sure that we're just taking that one little piece and really kind of looking at that when we're placing the kiddos back in. But thank you again for the presentation, and for taking the time to allow me to walk through the buildings and get my eyes on these classrooms so that I can fully envision what it will look like when we return to in person. And that's
Thank
it.
you, Mrs. Demos. And Mr. Stadman?
Thank you. The update was very helpful. Appreciate all the work that all the stakeholders have done, and I found most informative the transparency again with the open meetings on YouTube and the streaming. It's been most informative for everyone. So again, appreciate everything that you guys have been doing.
Thank you, Mr. Stadman. And Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I do have one question. First of all, I love the original plan, and I liked kind of the phased approach. But I understand things change, so we're pivoting, and I think that's great. I am impressed that you guys, were able to make all these changes in the last 24 hours. I do have one question. So we were originally going 5th and the 12th, and I understand the DESE guidelines. I mean, the guidelines changed, and the 28th is the day we have to do it. Is there a reason we're not considering doing it on Monday, the 26th, as opposed to Wednesday, the 28th?
Great question, Mr. Wilson. We had this very discussion ourselves pretty actively. One of the aspects is it's coming on the back end of April vacation.
Okay.
So we do think that's why the state identified that date. We've considered, maybe a slight ramp up to that point, but the more we look at this, and the more, and you're right, we kind of had this a more gradual phased in transition to get everybody comfortable. I would say the more we're into the work of looking at the spacing, of looking at other districts and how they're doing it, and the lunches, a lot of the feedback we're getting from other districts are, yes, we were very anxious about this, we were anxious about that, but once we did it, it was fine. So, I do think one of the pieces we have to ramp up for is bringing on additional staff to, support this piece while we have, individuals that are out on leave, while we have staff dedicated to the Remote Learning Academy. And we're underway on that piece. So we'll still keep that option open, but the more we look at it, we are gaining confidence ourselves that we can move in that direction on a quick piece as we solve these individual things each step of the way. But we will keep that in mind, and we'll also look for some stakeholder feedback. If that's going to be helpful to our staff and to our parents, we can certainly do it. Absolutely.
Okay. That's great. And thank you for also on the piece of the, my other question was just going to be about the staffing and lunches and sort of all that. But I think as we get further down the road, I think some of that will clarify itself. So thank you. The concerned parents that I've heard from, I've expressed to them that I have, ultimate confidence in the team and what you guys will come up with and the principles, and we're going to execute a good plan, and the kids are going to be better off for it. So I still think parents need to be patient and take a deep breath. And I know they want them back yesterday, but it does take some time to, put the fine details of the plan together, even though in August and September, we had a lot of these plans lined up and had a lot of ideas about what we would do or how we would do it. But right now we're at the finalization stage. So just thank you for all the hard work. And I think the presentation was great, and we'll be interested to see what the parents' feedback is.
Great, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Malone, I know originally we were slated to vote. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't anyways. At least it seems like, and I'll share my thoughts, obviously. I'm in full agreement and support with this plan as well. So I think it only makes sense for us to take a position and let everyone know where we stand as a district, and take a vote tonight to make sure that we're going to be in compliance with the DESE guidelines for the reopening, which will include all of our K-6 students in full-time by April 5th. And then our 7 through 12 in full-time by April 28th at the latest. So I'd like to take that as a form of a motion if someone would care to make it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to make that a motion that we support the plan laid out by the superintendent and assistant superintendent for returning our students back to more in-person learning with the plan that they just laid out.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the plan that was submitted tonight from the superintendent and assistant superintendent. That's in compliance with DESE. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Demos, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Moving on, seeing no new business, we're going to move on to school committee matters of interest. And I'm going to start with Mr. Cutlass.
I'll set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Demos.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stadman.
I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
Great. And Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I'm going to take just a quick minute just to start off by saying thank you to all you guys. You said some wonderful things about me earlier. I'm just happy I had an opportunity to serve. I only wish I could have done it longer. You know, it is, I've done a lot in this town, and by far, this has been the most challenging 18 months of my life. It has been really, really tough. But, you know, that's just me. Like that, you know, I think about our custodians and the nurses. I think about the teachers. I think about the people working in food service, the principals, what they've had to do and deal with. I mean, it's really been incredible as a team, watching you all operate and do what you do. Ron Druin's had quite a year with the sports and being able to pull that off. You know, you guys know that I coach over in North Andover, and most of what we stole for protocols were from Tewksbury. So thank you to Ron for that. You know, Dave, Libby, and Rick have been, you know, professionals in everything that they do and always willing to listen to me and answer my questions and take my calls. So thank you to you two. Brenda and Chris, tough year. I know personally a tough year for both of you. You've had dealt with some loss. And, you know, most of the public doesn't know that you guys just kept on ticking. And I know that that's almost an impossible thing to do, but you know, it didn't go unnoticed by me, and it just talks about the character of you guys as people. The union took a pretty tough stance on you earlier this year, a pretty unfair stance. I said that to the union, so I'm not speaking out of school. The way that you guys have continued to work with them and partner with them and try and move our school district forward without letting that get you hung up is speaks to your professionalism and the way you do your job. And I always knew you were good at what you do, but having sat at the table with you and watch you do it, wow. Wow, you guys should be really proud of what you've accomplished this year. And there's no year that can go like this year and what you guys have done. So thank you. Thank you to the members of the school committee for all welcoming me with open arms. I really appreciate your support. We've had some good conversations. I've learned from each and every one of you. And Keith, you know, I've known you through basketball and as a friend, honestly, through the years. But getting to watch you as the chairman and seeing the amount of time that you dedicate to the kids in the town and to the issues is really incredible. And people only know about a little bit of what you do. It's incredible. If I could make more time, I would have stuck around and I would love to have given another 3 years and tried to see all the things through. Came up short in a couple areas, but certainly wasn't for lack of trying. And I just appreciate you all. So thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to work with you. It's been great.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And just a reminder, as we move to more in person, this isn't as simple as going down in the basement and turning your water off for the winter and turning it back on for the spring. I always pride myself in not being up here and telling people what to do, but we really need to remain vigilant with the mitigation strategies that we have in place in the new ones. I have all the confidence in the world that we can get our kids back in. We can get them in safe, but we just can't disregard what's going on. We have to really be cognizant and really make sure that, you know, the mitigation that we do have in place and the safety stuff we have in place, you know, these kids deserve to be able to be in school, to be back with their friends, to have a normal graduation. And I would just hate to see that people are saying, hey, you know, it's over. Let's go back in and be somewhat reckless. So that's my only announcement tonight. Jason did say we have one caller, so we're going to take one final caller before we go to future agenda items. Jason, is the caller still there?
Yep, caller, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jen Kelly. I live on Sesame Street. I just had a quick question.
Sure.
I know we've got K through 5, K through 4 going in April 5th, and 7th and 8th going in April 28th.
Yes.
Why wouldn't the win go in as planned on April 12th for the half days up until the 28th so they can get into school sooner, I guess?
Mr. Malone?
We've looked at that, but we're also looking at the impact of the win in the high school going back full in person per the state regulatory guidance much sooner than we had anticipated in our phased-in plan. So our concern is, one, we're going to have to ramp up staffing at the elementary schools and the middle school, so we'll need a little time and piece to do that. But also, although we would have gone in earlier for the 4-hour day of instruction, in April 28th is later, the new regulatory guidance has us going in for a full day much sooner than we had anticipated on our phased-in plan. So we want to make sure we have all preparations, mitigation strategies for that ready to go on the 28th.
Okay, I just didn't know the reasoning, so I appreciate you explaining that.
Sure.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Kelly. Have a good evening.
Thank you, you too.
You're welcome. With that, I'll go to Mr. Cutlass. Do we have any future agenda items?
No, all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, our clerk, Mrs. Demos.
No, all set, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Stadman.
I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
Great. Mr. Wilson, one final time.
Yeah, I won't be here for that next meeting. So unless you pull out a special meeting to vote on something, I won't. So I won't add anything for you guys.
All right. Well, thanks again for your service, Scott. It truly is appreciated. And just for the general public, if you do have anything you would like to see on the agenda, please feel free to reach out to myself or any of my colleagues. And with that, our future school committee and future subcommittee meeting dates are April 14th, 2021, which will be after the election. We will have our reorganization meeting and then our regularly scheduled meeting. And the following meeting after that will be May 12th, 2021. With that, I turn it over to Mr. Cutlass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn this evening's meeting. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Demos, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. Thank you all for attending this evening and have a good night.
All right.
Thank you.